This morning, as the moderator already indicated, we are looking at how we power our agriculture, grow our incomes, but also protect our environment. So we are addressing that nexus, which is critical to our communities. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to commend the Kasanal Well Diocese and the Caritas for convening this very important dialogue. Allow me to also start by emphasizing why church is critical and why we are gathered here today. The Lordship Bishop made emphasis on why this topic is important. And allow me, on behalf of government and specifically our Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, to emphasize that church occupies a unique and powerful position in our development landscape. We know and continue to emphasize that church is deeply trusted. It is present in almost every community, and it has that machinery that can allow us to mobilize behavioral change at scale. And I saw my good chairman LC5 who will agree with me that when church says harvest only red coffee beans, the community heeds. So it's that example that continues to emphasize why we are gathered here on this important nexus. Allow me to add that through its institutions, church has the ability to demonstrate practical solutions and influence adoption of clean and productive energy technologies. And more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, church anchors climate action in stewardship and moral responsibility, making it a development actor and a true pivot for transformation. Today's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is both simple but very transformative. We are gathered here to look at how we can use renewable energy, not merely for lighting our homes, but to power production, increase incomes, and build resilience with the ultimate goal of socio-economic and environmental good. This country, Uganda, makes this important a topic. Over 70% of our population depends on agriculture for their livelihood. And yet, this same agriculture is vulnerable to climate change. At the same time, while national electricity access has now reached 60%, our communities, particularly those in these rural areas, their access is poor. It's generally low. They are highly dependent on biomass for their source of energy, with firewood and charcoal forming their biggest component of energy. Ladies and gentlemen, this has led to environmental degradation, just to emphasize the point well made by our Lordship. Because of the energy poverty that we have, our people are not able to manage their produce, but also manage the after production from the farm. So we continue to see as a country 30 to 40% losses post-harvest, which represents a huge income loss, but also wasted effort. This situation underscores a critical point, ladies and gentlemen, that we cannot transform agriculture without transforming energy. And that's the theme of this event today. More importantly, we must shift from thinking about energy as a basic service, but recognize it as a driver of productivity and economic transformation. Across Uganda, we have examples. We are already seeing the impact of this shift, the shift to energy for productivity and income and livelihoods. And there are many examples across this country where farmers are using solar-powered irrigation systems to grow crops throughout the year. And these farmers are increasing their yield 2 to 3 times or even more, and they are having more stable incomes. Solar drying technologies are helping farmers preserve produce that would otherwise be lost, turning waste into value. Those of you that come from this part of the country, which is the cattle corridor, appreciate that in the dairy sector, Solar-powered cooling systems are improving milk quality and enabling farmers to access higher value markets. Renewable energy is also powering agro-processing activities such as milling, oil extraction, and coffee processing, ensuring that farmers can earn more from their produce. These, ladies and gentlemen, are not isolated examples. They actually represent the future of Uganda's agricultural transformation and climate resilience. This transformation aligns fully with Uganda's national development agenda. We have recently just started on NDP 4, but most of the stakeholders here appreciate that we have a PDM program where government is committed to transitioning households from subsistence to commercial production. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, Uganda has committed to reducing greenhouse emissions. Our NDC currently stands at an ambitious 24.7, which we've committed to as a country. The productive use of energy in agriculture offers one of the most practical pathways to achieve both economic and climate goals. It is also important to emphasize the issue of inclusion, and I'm sure the panelists will be elaborating on this topic going forward. The doctor will tell you that women constitute between 70 to 80% of agricultural workforce, yet they face the greatest constraints: limited access to finance, heavy labor burdens, and health risks associated with traditional cooking methods of charcoal and firewood. Renewable energy can transform their lives by reducing drudgery, improving health, and enabling participation in income-generating activities. For the youth, and again my colleague from gender will speak about that, renewable energy and agriculture sectors present an opportunity for employment, innovation, and entrepreneurship, particularly as jobs become less as we are moving people off the streets. Despite these opportunities, ladies and gentlemen, several challenges remain. And the first panelist had already alluded to some of them. Allow me to just emphasize. The upfront cost of renewable energy technologies is still high for many small holder farmers, which in a way limits adoption. Access to affordable and appropriate financing remains constrained. Awareness and technical capacity at community level are still insufficient, and the panelists already emphasized this. But ladies and gentlemen, there is one more. That many of these interventions are fragmented and disconnected from the full agricultural value chain. So when a farmer must buy a technology, they may not either know where it is sold, or cannot afford it, or cannot access it altogether. Addressing these challenges requires deliberate and coordinated action. And as government, we are taking steps in that good direction. Ladies and gentlemen, through the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, we are expanding both grid and off-grid electrification under the National Electrification Strategy and ensuring that access reaches rural communities like ours here. We are implementing strategies focused on productive use of energy, particularly in irrigation, agro-processing, and cold storage. And ladies and gentlemen, allow me to emphasize that for the first time in our NDP 4, we have a dedicated pillar on productive use of energy and energy efficiency and conservation. That goes to emphasize the priority that government aligns with this particular theme of this morning. In collaboration with partners, we are promoting innovative financing mechanisms such as result-based financing, credit facilities, and pay-as-you-go models to improve affordability. In this part of the world, to our visitors, pay-as-you-go is very common for phones. So if you tell all of us to raise our phones, I'm sure there are many phones that come from M-Copper. It is also happening within this sector, and we hope that will be an opportunity to bring down the affordability barrier. We don't only grow food, but we also cook food. So clean cooking is also being prioritized as a key component of our energy transition. Indeed, Your Lordship, the Bishop, and the distinguished stakeholders it is now an affirmative action that in all programs of government on energy, clean cooking has been mainstreamed as one of those key undertakings to support our communities. However, ladies and gentlemen, and then I turn to our partners, government efforts alone are not sufficient. We must move beyond isolated projects and adopt integrated approaches that link energy directly to agricultural value chains from production, processing, storage, and market opportunities. This requires stronger partnerships between government, and that's why we are here represented by my colleagues from government, private sector, and I'm glad that this initiative brings together private sector drawn from across the country, but most importantly, our development partners and the community institutions such as the great church that has convened us here. Looking ahead, ladies and gentlemen, our focus must be very clear as a country, but also as a group of distinguished stakeholders gathered here today. We must scale up financing mechanisms that make productive use technologies accessible to farmers, and that's one of the objectives of this initiative. We must deliberately target women and youth, ensuring they have the tools, skills, and opportunities to participate in this transformation. Where we see today, our dear guests, we are looking for jobs, and this country is of younger people. I'm not one of them, but I know that we are predominantly very young. So we must create opportunities for youth, but also the women. We must support local enterprises to build strong domestic value chains in this area of renewable energy and agro-processing, which is part of this intervention again. We must strengthen coordination across sectors to ensure that policies and interventions are aligned. And I'm glad that we have a panelist that will be joining the panel from FAO who will talk about the alignment in terms of policy. And importantly, we must measure success for us from energy, not just by the number of connections that we've made, but by the increase in incomes, productivity, and the resilience that we have achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to borrow the words of the earlier moderator who asked us to imagine. Imagine we should. Imagine a Uganda where every farmer has access to reliable and affordable energy for irrigation, processing, and storage. Imagine a Uganda where no harvest is lost due to lack of energy. Imagine women leading thriving enterprises powered by clean energy and youth driving innovation across agricultural and energy sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, that Uganda is within our reach going forward. Let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by emphasizing that the future of Uganda's agriculture is not only in the soil, as we have already said. It is actually in the energy that powers it as well. If we get this right, we'll transform livelihoods, create jobs, and protect our environment for the generations to come. I want to conclude with the quotation of the Bible, because where we are, it is very important that we align with the purpose. In the Bible, and those of you that have Bibles, you could go to Genesis 2:15. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. I want to mention this. It is now it's important that I emphasize how that has been brought up from 2015, Laudato Si. Care for our common home should guide us in all our initiatives. Thank you very much.